Madam Chair, councillors and council staff, I'm Barry Alcorn, Vice President of the Cunningham Valley Action Group. I'm speaking on the group's behalf. Our President, Julia Atkin, is sorry she is unable to be present due to prior work commitments in Adelaide. It is the responsibility of council to make decisions that serve the public interest. For 9 years, Blantyre Farms has not been able to prove the site is suitable. They have not been able to prove they can prevent irreversible damage to the environment, including odour issues and contamination of surface and groundwater. The creation of a public health risk, irreversible damage to Aboriginal cultural heritage, or serious land use conflicts that cannot be managed. Council has made a thoughtful, considered and responsible decision, placing the public interest at the forefront and acting with appropriate caution. We respectfully ask Council to uphold the decision made last week, ensuring that public interest continues to be protected. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Alcorn. The next speaker is Norma Freeman, and she's from the Young Local Aboriginal Land Council, and she is speaking against the motion.
Dear Madam Chair, councillors and council staff, as the CEO of Young LOC, I would like to thank the councillors who truly listened to us last week when we spoke about the deep connections we have with our country, a connection that runs through our veins, passed down from our ancestors. We are obliged to protect country. That is our law. We shared with you how special, rare and sacred Cunningham Valley is to the Wiradjuri people, not just as the land, but as the living, breathing part of our culture and our identity. It would be absolutely devastating to see it harmed, damaged and destroyed due to any contamination. The idea of 21 foul-smelling sheds and pools of wastewater desecrating this valley is more than just an insult. It is a wound to our spirit. Tonight, as you sit there and make an acknowledgement to country, I ask you, those of you who support this piggery on our sacred land, what does that acknowledgement mean? How can you just say you respect country and respect our elders while planning to desecrate the landscape that has great significance to us? It's a mockery. We are not against the piggery being built. We're just against the position it is, the location. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. The next speaker is Mr. Stephen Johnson, once again speaking against the motion.
Thank you for this further opportunity to address Council. As I said this time last week, I am pro-business. For 20 years, I pursued a corporate career building businesses to the benefit of their owners, employees, customers, and the communities in which they operated. For the next 20 years, I worked alongside business owners, CEOs, and boards, helping them deal all too often with the consequences of poor decisions, faulty business plans, and sound decisions implemented poorly. The proposal for this business was rightly rejected. While it may have been good for its owners, it was certainly not for the community. Too often in this debate, I have heard it's approved by the regulators and it's good for business. It was not approved by the regulators. The EPA, Heritage New South Wales, the Department of Planning and Environment Water were consulted. They listed concerns and issued general terms of approval, but not one of them will issue a licence unless and until Council approves the development application. And it's not good for employment. We were told of a handful of additional jobs on site, but nothing of the jobs that would be lost elsewhere, or the possibility of business closures from businesses located in a town nobody wants to live in anymore or come to. The population of Harden has declined by around 12% over the last 9.5 years. That is, since residents became aware of the proposed piggery and were able to form a view on the threat one would pose to their futures. Of course, I'm not suggesting this as the sole cause. I have friends who visited, loved our lifestyle, and found it elsewhere. I have a daughter, son-in-law, and granddaughter who visited, loved our lifestyle, and found it elsewhere. I've had enough of being a poster boy for other places. I want Harden to grow and prosper. I want its existing businesses to flourish and new ones to open. That won't happen in a smelly town with a contaminated water supply. So, 48 pages of conditions later, and with the certainty of odour and drinking water contamination, wisdom prevailed last week. The proposal was voted down. Harden may have a future. Thank you to those councillors who voted down the proposal. With sound leadership, Harden will have a future.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Our next speaker is Mr. Adrian Villella. Did I say it correctly? And Mr. Villella will speak for the motion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors and council staff. Thank you again for the opportunity to address you in support of the recommendation that's before you today. I'm a director at Urbis, as I mentioned last week when we were here, and we are the town planners for the applicant on this project. I'd just like to take the opportunity to really reinforce the extensive technical investigation work that has been carried out to demonstrate the suitability of the subject site to operate in accordance with the relevant regulatory and industry requirements. The proposed development of an intensive livestock operation in the form of a pig farm will result in intensification of primary production on a site that is zoned for agricultural purposes. That is an important point which we note, and this has been used for agricultural purposes for the last 120 years. Over the last 4.5 years, the impacts of the proposal have been extensively investigated by the applicant's subject matter experts. This has included agency input and advice on survey study methodologies for assessments where required, and has called for mitigation and management measures to be developed, far greater than you would any other day. A high degree of environmental assessment by council, including the appointment of an independent consultant, has played a key role in the decision that was put before council last week. The findings from each technical investigation were considered and overlaid and demonstrated the site's suitability for the proposed land use activities. For certain activities, yes, a greater degree of ongoing management and monitoring will be required, and the applicant is committed to conforming with this. This is not to be unexpected for an operation of this nature in 2024. The detailed assessment report before you reflects a forensic evaluation which has been applied to the development application in accordance with section 4.15 of the EP&A Act. It is also noted that Council's assessment report has considered clause 5.15 of Harden Local Environmental Plan, which continues to apply to this DA. That clause sets out the specific matters that must be considered when assessing a development of this nature, in particular addressing site suitability and odour. Just touching on odour, I note that ACON prepared both the EIS and odour impact assessment for both the RTS and the EIS. Engagement with the EPA formed a crucial part of that odour impact assessment work, and the RTS odour assessment work specifically responded to the EPA's request for further information and was able to demonstrate that the adequacy of the on-site meteorological station data used for modelling was satisfactory. A series of sensitivity tests were conducted both for the meteorological model and the air dispersion model. The results of the modelling showed that reported predicted odour concentrations within the odour impact assessment were actually highly conservative. That's AECOM's words. The odour impact assessment found that the concentrations at all sensitive receivers will be below the adopted EPA odour unit criterion, and therefore the risk of chronic odour impacts as set out in Council's assessment report at sensitive receptors is unlikely. Mitigation measures are proposed as part of that OIA odour impact assessment, that is, recommendations. In relation to heritage and in parallel with the quantitative environmental assessment, extensive investigations and consultation were carried out as part of preparing the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Assessment Report. The applicant has reviewed and understands the general terms of approval issued by Heritage New South Wales. Any known Aboriginal objects outside the survey area will be avoided, and where appropriate in accordance with the GTAs as annexed under Attachment 1 of the Council Officer's report, any known Aboriginal object that does not fall within the avoided areas will be marked out with a minimum 5 metre buffer prior to the application of any liquid effluent in that location.
1 minute.
In summary, in making your decision this evening, consideration must reasonably be given to the technical evidence presented to you. The regulatory approvals received, general terms of approval, and I acknowledge the note raised earlier, and the officer's assessment report, which has been prepared in consultation with the council-appointed independent consultant. General terms of approval, as discussed at length last week, have been received from the New South Wales EPA, the National Regulator, Resource Access Regulator, and Heritage New South Wales. We support the recommendation for a deferred commencement consent, and from our discussions with Water New South Wales and Transgrid, we're confident that the deferred commencement consent condition can be satisfied within that.
The next speaker is Mr. Kazera. Is that correct? Thank you. And
Well
you're
done.
speaking
Yes, Kazera or Kachera.
for the motion.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors and council staff. Thank you for the opportunity to address you on behalf of the applicant. I am an environmental engineer at EMM with 18 years experience in the industry. I prepared the soil and water assessment for the DA with input from specialist soil scientists, hydrogeologists, and Blantyre Farms agronomists and design consultants. I'll speak about 4 aspects of the soil and water assessment today: the no overflow commitment from the effluent system, the slope of the site, the risk to regional drinking water system, and groundwater table impacts. On the no overflow commitment, as the council assessment report sets out, the grower and breeder units will have systems to manage solid and liquid waste from the livestock sheds. The systems will be similar for each unit and include 3 components: a covered anaerobic pond, solid separating swales referred to as SEPs, and an effluent holding pond. Effluent from the holding pond will be used to flush the sheds, which means the systems will be operated as a closed loop system. Each system will slowly accumulate effluent due to the gradual addition of water in each flushing cycle, and during wet weather due to direct rainfall and runoff from small upgradient areas that flow into the ponds. Stormwater from the sheds and roof and other parts of the site will be separated from the system. In terms of inflow volumes, to provide context, for the grower unit, the effluent accumulation rate is estimated to be 0.082 megalitres a day, relative to the holding pond volume of 13.9 megalitres, which means that from empty to full, the holding pond can store around 170 days of effluent accumulation. I estimate the runoff volume from a 1 in 100 year 24-hour duration storm would be between 3 and 4 megalitres, which is equivalent to less than 30% of the holding pond volume. This means that overflows would only occur during a storm event if the ponds were near full prior to the storm. The breeder unit is smaller but has similar ratios. Effluent accumulation is managed by land application when conditions are suitable. Suitable conditions are dry conditions with no forecast material rain for the next 3 days. During extended wet conditions, there can be limited opportunities for land application, which can result in the gradual accumulation in the system. As described in the DA, it is proposed to use the stormwater ponds as temporary contingency storage if needed to avoid an overflow. The ponds would be specifically designed to enable the diversion of stormwater and to store effluent, which can be transferred in via pumping once the stormwater is removed. It's anticipated that that transfer would only be required once every 15 to 20 years. The effectiveness of the system was assessed using the Watt-Bow model, which was specifically developed for the intensive livestock industry. The model simulated 120 years of weather from 1900 to 2020, which includes many wet and dry weather sequences, and concluded that no overflows from either the grower or breeder unit would occur. So in conclusion, the system described in the DA has been designed to not overflow. On the slope constraint. To address the slope constraint at the site, the land application approach was adjusted from the industry standard of one application every 3 years to a smaller annual application in each paddock. The application depth will vary based on the strength of the effluent, but is expected to be between 3 to 10 millimetres a year. Therefore, the proposed approach at Yulee cannot be compared to other operations
1 minute.
which apply the industry standard approach of one larger, say 30 mil application every 3 years. The commitment in the DA is to apply effluent such that there is no runoff. In some parts of the site, this may require annual application to be applied twice, i.e. 2 smaller applications instead of 1. On impacts to the drinking water system, if there's no overflow from the effluent system and no runoff from application, then there's no risk to the regional drinking water system that sources water from the Murrumbidgee River, more than 40 kilometres downstream of Yulee. I don't have time to talk about groundwater unless you give me an extra 40 seconds. No. Okay. Well, thanks for your time and happy to take any questions.
Through you, Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councillor.
I'm very keen to know a bit more about the groundwater issue. If you'd like to expand on that, please.
Yes, no worries. So the project will use groundwater to supply the grower and breeder units. It is proposed to develop a groundwater production bore at each facility that will collectively access up to 60 megalitres a year from the local groundwater system, which is known as the Lachlan Ford Belt. As with all groundwater production bores, there will be a localised impact to the water table around the 2 bores. Groundwater drawdown calculations are shown in figures 3.2 and 3.3 of the Soil and Water Assessment Response to Submission report. These figures show that the groundwater drawdown will be localised, and even for the most conservative scenario assessed, the drawdown would be less than the minimal impact threshold in the aquifer interference policy at all bores on neighbouring properties. Blantyre Farms has already obtained a water access licence for the 60 megalitres a year. Does that answer your question?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our last speaker is Ms. Helen McFarlane, and Ms. McFarlane is speaking for the motion.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, councillors and council staff. My name is Helen McFarlane. I'm a consultant at Addison's and have practiced in environment and planning law for nearly 30 years. I've been advising Blantyre Farms on this project since early 2016. I speak in favour of the motion and will be speaking to you on your consent authority obligations under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. In exercising your consent authority role, it's important to remember that under the EP&A Act, your discretion is not unfettered. You are required to take into consideration the matters, including those under Section 4.15 of the EP&A Act,
and the principles of public law. The consideration of relevant matters must be based on probative evidence, and your decision must involve a process of logical reasoning. It's not the vibe or the mood in the community. The principles of proper administrative decision-making are infringed if you do otherwise. One of the speakers against the motion referred to the public interest, and that is a legitimate matter for you to consider under the EPNA Act in making your determination. However, you must make an evaluation of the reasonableness of the claimed perceptions of the adverse effects of the proposed development raised by the community. That's an important principle of public administrative law. This involves an evaluation of the reasonableness of the claimed adverse effects and involves the identification of evidence that can be objectively assessed to ascertain whether it supports a factual finding of an adverse effect. A fear or concern without rational or justified foundation is not a matter which by itself can be considered to be an impact. In a case involving Telstra and Hornsby Council, a proposed mobile telephone base station in Sydney, and community fears about electromagnetic energy and its potential harm to the health and safety of residents. The Chief Judge of the Land and Environment Court described the case before him as one raising questions about fear, rationality and the law, and how a responsible decision maker should respond to public fears. His Honour said, making an arbitrary decision causes a greater disservice to the community than making a rational one. Now, Mr. Alcorn spoke of irreversible damage and the precautionary principle. In the same case involving Telstra, the Chief Judge of the Court held that the precautionary principle does not apply where the evidence establishes that the development could be operated in a way that would not have any significant environmental consequences. That is not to say that where the development involves the potential to cause harm to the health of human beings, that extreme caution should not be exercised in determining whether the development consent should be granted, but regard is to be had to the evidence before the consent authority. The evidence in this DA establishes that the proposed development can be operated in a way that would not have any significant environmental consequences. Having regard to the preventative measures proposed, including those in the recommended conditions of consent, and the overwhelming expert evidence in favour of the proposed development, including the GTAs from regulatory authorities with expertise in these areas, there are no grounds that warrant the refusal of this DA. I have instructions from Blantyre Farms to file an appeal if the council maintains its refusal of the DA. Now, I'm not saying that as a threat, it's just a fact. The court would hear the matter afresh and consider and determine the DA based on reason and substantiated independent expert evidence. It will not be swayed by community perception of adverse effects of the proposed development if it is unsubstantiated and without rational foundation. In my experience, a matter of this kind would probably take about 2 weeks hearing time. Based on the grounds that were raised at the council meeting on the 28th of August, very detailed evidence would be required from multiple experts. Both parties would incur substantial legal fees, solicitors and barristers and expert fees, just for their own costs. Now, in matters of this kind, an unsuccessful counsel is not ordinarily ordered to pay the successful applicant's cost of the proceedings. However, the court can do so if it's fair and reasonable in the circumstances to do so. And the court has done that. In the Telstra case, the court held that the council's opposition in refusing the application and then defending the proceedings in the absence of expert evidence was unreasonable. And so Hornsby Council was ordered to pay Telstra's fees. So in considering whether it's fair and unreasonable to defend proceedings and whether a council who is unsuccessful should pay the costs of the applicant, the court would have regard to whether the contentions raised by the council were supported by evidence and whether its persistence in defending the appeal in the face of evidence was justified. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McFarlane.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, Councillor
For the last speaker?
Yes.
No. Taking on your expert advice, and thank you. And you mentioned the Telstra Hornsby case. In similarity, what would be the probability of the court awarding costs, in your expert opinion?
Well, it's on the basis of the evidence that's before this council, I'd say it's pretty good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That concludes our public forum, and we will go on with the meeting. And the next one is the statement of ethical obligations. Councillors are reminded that they will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Hilltops local government area and the Hilltops Council, and that they will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of their ability and judgment, as per their oath or affirmation of office made under Section 233A of the Local Government Act 1993. The next is attendance. We have had a request from Councillor Mackay to attend by digital means. Councillor HEWSON was given a medical reasons, and we haven't heard from any other councillors. All right, I'll put it to the floor. Beg your pardon? Yes, I realise that. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. All right, we move on to disclosures of interest. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. And you'll leave the...
Yes, also I will, option F, make a declaration, do not participate in the vote and leave the chamber when the matter is before council.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cameron.
So you know,
Councillor
Mayor,
Piper.
I'll make a declaration. Due to legal advice both from my own personal solicitor and Golden Fields legal team, I will join Councillor Flannery outside.
All right. Thank you. Have that done? All right.
Madam Mayor, could I just move a sympathy motion before we proceed, please?
Yes.
Look, it was on the agenda of the sympathy expressions of last council meeting, but Shirley Doolin, the mother of Simon, passed away, and with the happenings and goings on, I was intending on speaking but didn't. But Shirley was married to Alan Doolin, who was one of the work staff at Harden Council for 35 years. Tim Doolin, Shirley's oldest son, and Alan's son, was sadly lost his life working for council about 25 years ago on the job and caused a lot of distress to the Harden community. Simon's been working with council, I think, for 35 years, and I think it would be remiss of me not to talk about the life she gave to supporting her family, who have been entirely invested in council.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. A seconder, Councillor Ingram? Thank you. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on now to 6, which is the business for this evening, or the main business, and that is notion of motion. I'll just wait for councillors to... Oh, that's right. Okay. All right. We have tonight notice of motion 601-2407, motion put forward by Councillors Ingram, HEWSON and Mackay to rescind Resolution 24/267, item DA 2020-0005, intensive livestock agriculture, Pig Farm and Electricity Generating Works, 230 BONOAK Road, BEGGAN. The notice of motion to rescind Resolution 24267, item DA 2020 0005. As was, I'll read, hold on. Intensive Livestock Agriculture Pig Farm and Electricity Generation Works, 230 BONOAK Road, BEGGAN, as resolved at Ordinary Council meeting held on 28th of August 2024, and move a motion to grant deferred commencement consent to DA 2020-005 as detailed below. And the motion that Council rescind Resolution 24-67, a DA 2020-0005, refuse the application due to the following reasons: site unsuitability, extreme weather events, contamination risk, community concerns about pollution of water, odour and contamination. Councillor Ingram, you put the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to foreshadow a motion if my rescission motion was to be successful. And that motion would be that Council grant deferred commencement consent to DA 2020/0005 for intensive livestock agriculture operation being a pig farm and electricity generating works and auxiliary development at 230 BONOAK Road, BEGGAN, subject to the recommendations in attachment 1. Okay. Where do I start? Let's start. Again, I'd like to thank the 6 speakers. As I said, I don't want to repeat, if I can help it, everything that I said at the last meeting. I do have empathy for the people speaking against it. I also have high regard for the professional manner in which the people spoke for the development application, a lot of which I had here in notes I'd written, so I wouldn't try and digress too far. So I'll deal with the matter that I put up to rescind the resolution. I put the rescind motion in the hope that my fellow councillors, like I, had time to reflect on the decision that was made. The decision was made with hundreds and hundreds of pages in front of us. And when I reflected back on it, I thought, and I don't want to speak light of the matter, but it was like, I felt like I was in a library in between the non-fiction and the fiction section. We had reports in front of us, as I said, with hundreds and hundreds of pages citing approval, all fully backed by evidence and fully supported by the relevant state authorities. New South Wales Department of Environment Protection Authority, New South Wales Department of Environment and Heritage, New South Wales Department of Planning and Environment, Water, DPE. All granted approval. Then we got down to, and unfortunately I've just been informed before the meeting start that the consultancy firm that Council engaged to re-scrutinise everything that the New South Wales State regulatory authorities had done isn't present tonight because he never got asked any questions last time. Well, I had a bag full of for him tonight, so I'll just reduce him to a few, and hopefully the director, although I can't see the director speaking for the consultancy firm, but anyway, my question to the consultant was going to be the level of scrutiny that the state departments would have put this under, and the reason it's been, would it be safe to assume 9 years getting to where it is now, is because there was numerous issues raised and they all had to be addressed by the applicant, and they were. Would that be correct?
So through you, Madam Mayor, I can't speak to the level of scrutiny because that's a subjective matter. What you do know have in front of you is that GTAs were issued, and that is a part of your decision-making consideration tonight.
Yeah, we'll try again. Okay, so I've got to leave the consult, unfortunately, and I'm not all that happy about it, because I'm pretty sure the consultant would have time to speak quite lengthy on this matter. And I would expect the council who's paid us substantial amount of money, and I'm frightened to guess, but if you start at $50,000, wouldn't be anywhere near it, I'd imagine, to that company, that they're not at present to speak tonight for us. It's most unfortunate. So we'll move down to the next level, which is council level. So council received the reports from those 3 New South Wales departments that I spoke of and their assessments, the toing and froing with the issues that were addressed. The consultants, and I presume, and I know it's dangerous to presume, council staff thought it appropriate to employ a consultant to revise that work. Would that be correct?
So through you, Madam Mayor, as you appreciate, there was a previous application in front of council, and it's fair to say that that experience was challenging for staff, and part of the reason for bringing in a consultant was to have someone at arm's length provide their assessment. It wasn't necessarily to do with the complexity of this application solely, but it was just one of many factors that led to the decision that it would be in everyone's best interest to have an independent person.
I'm pretty sure that's a yes, thank you. Yep, okay. So we've got that straight. The consultants were employed to make sure that what the report said were on target. So then we come down to council level. Madam Mayor, to your expert staff. And I'll pay compliments again to the staff for the work they did. So then staff reviewed all the information in front of them and the consultant's report, and the consultant spoke to council at a workshop and delivered their report. And then our council staff, being efficient and very cautious as they were, granted consent, but granted deferred consent for a matter that the Water Authority said they didn't need at the present time, but that's no impede to the process going ahead. But I appreciate local government having their little say right at the end and saying that a commencement consent would be deferred. So as a Director of Infrastructure and your staff going through the reports that came from the 3 state departments and the consultants that reported to council, you were quite confident in your experience to send this to the chamber with a recommendation to grant approval.
So through you, Madam Mayor, there's a couple of elements in that question. So the first one with regard to the construction of the conditions that are in front of you, that was led by the consultant, having done the work, and planning staff were involved in giving feedback and iterating various additions of that. In relation to the GTAs, there has been interaction between both council officers and the consultant with the agencies, just trying to understand elements of the GTAs that were issued and whether they were fit for purpose to bring forward to council for decision making. What I can say is that the papers you have in front of you with the GTAs that have been issued are fit for purpose for you to make an informed decision tonight as to whether to approve or refuse this application.
Thank you for that. I'll just ask one more question and then I'll let you go. Did your recommendation to council recommend to grant consent will that be deferred?
Madam Mayor, yes, the recommendation is that.
Thank you very much for that confirmation. Okay, thank you, and I appreciate that. And it's a bit hard to put you on the spot when, as I said, most disappointed that our consultant wasn't invited back for this meeting. I'll move on. So we've got to the part where it's taken 9 years and everything's been scrutinised that closely. It's gone through all these departments, through the consultant, through the staff, and here we are. And there's only one thing that all those levels have in common. One thing, mainly, to grant approval. To grant approval to the DA. That's why it's been going on. People like to use the reasoning about the DA been going on so long because there's having so many problems. It's been going on so long so the applicant could answer and cover all the issues that all the departments and people have been asking them. The applicant has done that, has satisfied the regulatory authorities, and once again, everyone recommended to grant approval. Now that's what you call evidence. That's the non-fiction section. That's fact. It's factual. It's evidence. And I'd like to thank the professionalism of the engineer who spoke. People who are highly professionally trained in their fields. Not making assumptions, not trying to predict extreme weather, telling facts, and facts that can be proven. That's something that councillors need to take into consideration when we're making decisions, as been mentioned by speakers for and against, in the public interest. The comments given by my colleagues last week when the original vote was taken are not irrational, but that's probably not the word I'm at best. Statements along the lines of, and don't quote me, but I'll have to go back and watch the recording a couple of times just to get my head around what I'd heard. All the mitigation means are in place. Everything is spot on, but I'm going to vote against it. Madam Mayor, I really should support this a couple of times. Legally compliant. There is no reason, legislatively, sorry, big word, for me to vote against this. But I'm going to vote against it. Another councillor started with the comment that wasn't sure he was for or against. Then spent 5 minutes talking against it, which is his right, and I'm really pleased we live in a democratic society. I don't want to live anywhere else. But towards the end, the real reason came out. He had a personally negative feeling about animal activism. I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure when this, if it had to get to court, that would be ruled out as an invalid reason to be voting on a matter. When we talk about public interest and why we vote, to sit there and acknowledge all the reasons why you should vote in a particular manner and then vote again, I find hard to follow. A councillor who's left the room, so it's hard for me to talk about the conflict of interest he had last week, and I won't because you're not in the room, and that's not the way I do things.
Councillor Ingram, you're
None of the
very
reasons.
close. Thank you. Councillor Ingram, you're very close to time.
With your indulgence, Madam Mayor, would you mind if I finished off what I had to say, given the seriousness of this matter?
Yes, I'm just saying that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll try not to digress.
Thank you.
None of the reasons given have any evidence. Site unsuitability. Covered in, I counted 7 different sections of the report where it said the site was suitable. Extreme weather event. Now that's non-existent. You can't tell me what it's going to do next week, councillors, let alone talk about extreme weather events. That's just so far off the radar for being a reason. I really have trouble with it. Contamination. Everyone acknowledged there was risk of contamination. That's why there's 110,000 pages and reports by all these state departments to make sure that doesn't happen. Do you really think those state department people, if they thought there was the slightest chance of contamination, would grant approval for this matter? Do you think that consultant firm that we paid or our staff would recommend? All the applicants would put their livelihood on, not this piggery, but their whole livelihood on the line if they thought there was any chance of contamination to water? Let's be real. Do you think those people would do that? No, I don't think so. That's a bit of the, what I call part about the fiction. There's no factual evidence to back up those sentiments. And I pay my greatest respects to Anna Union and Norma in regard to the Aboriginal heritage side of things, and take on full confidence that the applicant will respect that in the highest degree. I just wanted to acknowledge that. The legality of refusing a DA, and lo and behold, we had a professional legal person talk about it, that meets every condition by every government department. Councillors is not carrying out your duties in good faith, as is required by the Councillor Code of Conduct that I'm frequently reminded of. I hope that you've made yourself aware of that wording in that document. And I'd like to also bring to attention to people in the gallery and fellow councillors all received this. This is a 21-page response to those 4 conditions in that, reasons, I should say, for that motion last week, both on legal basis and on merit basis. I trust every councillor has read that and thank the applicant for providing additional information which is needed to make sure the correct decisions are made and the councillors are aware of our responsibilities. So I've spoken on the reasons for refusal, and I talked about legal and liability for decisions we make, and I digressed a bit there. I'm sorry.
Councillor Ingram, I will remind you again.
Yep, I'm coming right to
The time limit was 5 and we're well over.
Yeah, I know. Yep, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I appreciate that. And it was mentioned by a speaker about jobs and economic benefits to the community, about a town dying because of this application. My experience in life is that a DA creating the construction work and the ongoing work on a project like this would be enormous for a small community that's really struggling. So thank you for your indulgence, Madam Mayor. And as I said, both speakers for both sides, and I hope, fellow councillors, you can reflect with me and support me on this rescission motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. We've had a speaker for. Would any other councillor? Or a seconder? No, we don't have a second. Do we have a second?
Seconded, Councillor Mackay.
Councillor Mackay. Councillor Mackay has seconded it. So we do have a seconder. There you go. Councillor, any councillor like to speak? Councillor Foreman?
Look, I will just say my position hasn't changed, but I would just say this, that we can all sit here and say that all the boxes have been ticked. However, the decision that we make here tonight, that has, I know, weighed heavily on all of us, it's an intergenerational decision. You know, I look around the Hilltops and I can see there are clearly a lot of industries that back in the day, I'm sure would have been considered economically viable, would have, you know, created jobs. You know, and I'm all for progression and to see our towns grow, but we have to make our decisions in a conscious way. And I think you would look around now and you would see all the things back then that were approved that are clearly not in a suitable location today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank the 6 speakers tonight who've gone through a number of the issues and given us some more detail, and it was really good to get the detail about the overflow or potential overflow and other details that have been raised during tonight's meeting. So I thank them for coming along and giving us that information. There are things in this document, in this motion, which significantly concern me for a lot of reasons. I believe that after looking through all the paperwork and the 21-page document that was sent to us, and which I did read, I believe that I must come down on the side of public interest, and I will vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Dodd, do you want to make a comment?
Is it, General Manager, just a point of clarification before Councillor Mackay? No? Is it kosher to declare your vote before the debate's finished?
You can certainly state your intent.
I didn't state intent. He said what he was going to vote before the debate was finished.
He can change his mind. Councillor Mackay, did you Why vote
Uh,
for or?
Councillor Dodd might speak and then Councillor Mackay. Would you like to say?
Yes.
Okay, so Councillor Dodd and then Councillor Mackay.
I am going to speak against. So whether or not we need another 4 first, I don't know. I'm going to speak against. No. Okay.
No.
So my previous comments still stand. I'd like to acknowledge the time and skill of staff who put together the comprehensive report so we could be as informed as possible. And I note that there are numerous quite stringent conditions attached to the original recommendation to mitigate the issues raised about water and other things, and also note the commitment of the applicant. However, I still have concerns about the risks to water in a drinking water catchment from building a piggery on this site. The risks of water contamination may be small, but the consequences would not be, and they would be irreversible. The risks may be mitigated, but they have not been removed. I'm very happy for it to be, if it goes to land environment, very happy for them to decide. This is a progressive development, but it's on the wrong side. I will not be changing my vote. I am voting, I believe I will be voting whichever way in the interests of the people of Hilltops. But currently I will not be voting to rescind the previous resolution.
Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
I also want to thank the 6 speakers who spoke for and against.
Councillor Mackay, you're very
nice to
breaking up.
to opinion. How is that?
I think that might be better. Have another go.
I haven't had any trouble until now.
Oh, now you're fine. We can hear you now.
I'm just in a different house. Okay. I'm standing up on my leg. That's okay. So, as I said last week, and I support Brian on this, there was so much evidence before us to support the DA. I can only go back on all the specialist evidence. And it didn't matter how many times I had to look through it. There was just too much support, too much evidence for me to not consider it in a positive way. I know people keep on going back to the site, and in fact, I received a really rude email suggesting it was because I didn't go on site that I really didn't have an idea of the full impact of the development. And all I can say, and then listening to I'm not sure of his title now, but he was the engineer that spoke tonight. I thought, it wouldn't have mattered if I'd stood out there for a whole day. I didn't have the specialist, the qualifications really to make any judgment on the site, on the slope. That's not what any of us really on council do. We don't specialise in that sort of stuff. I get that Mary has she has a concern, but I'd suggest that she just does not know. She really should be relying on the evidence in front of her. So I thank Brian because he's done a lot of hard work.
If you just refer to them as Councillor Mackay,
okay.
That's more professional.
Okay. So I thank Councillor Ingram because he did a lot of work really looking at the way he came to his conclusions. And I think as councillors, we're guided by our code of conduct about how we make a decision. And I think we all need to be reminded of that. And that was supported by our legal person in the team tonight, that she reminded us of just how corralled we are in making our decisions, and we shouldn't look beyond that. So it was obviously a tough one for a lot of people. For me, the reading was tough, but the way I made my decision, that wasn't tough because all the good stuff was just before me, really. And I just had to use the principles of good decision making, and that's why I came to my conclusion. So I thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackay. I don't think I need to make any further comment. Yes, I was going to say that, but Councillor Ingram, you have the right of reply before we put it to the vote.
Sure you wouldn't like to make comment, Madam Mayor?
Councillor Ingram, you
I'd
have the right of reply.
be quite happy if you wanted to speak on the matter.
No, and I'm more than happy for you to have your right of reply. Thank you.
Well dodged. Councillor Fitzgerald, you got something you'd like to say to me? I don't like being intimidated, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Ingram.
I'm a timid little man.
Councillor Ingram, I'm finding your comments then intimidating. Can you just keep to your right of reply? Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies, Madam Mayor. And sincere apologies, Councillor Fitzgerald. I accept you screwed your face up at me, so we're even. Thank you. Let's get back to the right of reply. Okay. To the people in the audience, I apologise for that. We digressed altogether from the matter that's in front of us, and it's important. And yeah, I do get a bit agitated. At the last meeting, I made a comment about paying consultant firms good money and throwing it out the door with the report. Well, I was being polite. What my father told me a long time ago was, only fools pay people for really good advice, then don't take it. I'm sorry, it applies very, very well here. People talked about the public interest. When this matter gets to the Land and Environment Court, you can be assured those councillors who said they're voting in public interest will get a pretty stern response from the court. Also, it's probably fortunate, that's the last council meeting, these types of votes in the face of the vast amount of evidence that is put in front of us is exactly why the Minister for Local Government would issue a show cause letter. Because he would declare your councils dysfunctional. How did they come to that decision with all that evidence there in front of them? Now, that's not an assumption, that's factual. I've been in contact with a few friends that I have along the way over the last 12 years in local government on bigger councils and sent them this report just to get some confidence, is not the word I'm after, but some reassurance that my thought pattern was correct. And out of the 6 people I contacted from different councils, it was unanimous. So I thought, well, I'm going to keep on the very same vein. It's not just me. For 5 lay people, 4 tonight, sorry, and I won't mention their professions, to sit in this room and not take the advice of all those government departments, consultants, and expert staff, Madam Mayor, that you keep referring us to, is unbelievable. I've got some news for everyone. This piggery will go ahead. It will go to the Land and Environment Court, and the Land and Environment Court will blow this council decision clean out the door. The only thing that I was trying to prevent from happening is the cost landing back on council. And when I say back on council, it will come back to ratepayers. Now, this is not exact, but it's not hearsay neither, because I've done some research as well. The Land Environment Court costs will be anywhere from $400,000 to $800,000. The probability of costs being put with it are, as that legal advice was, very, very high because of the frivolous manner in which way this matter has been dealt with by local government. This is going to cost the community, as I said, a significant amount of money. If this is a legacy this council wants to impose on an incoming council, I again find that unbelievable. If any of the councillors are re-elected that are standing for the next council, and this matter comes back, and I happen to be re-elected, I will ensure that their liability is closely monitored in regard to costs, because I believe factual, they have breached their code of conduct in their duties serving on a local government council, and it's in black and white. So it would appear that's where it's going to happen, because before the debate finished, Councillor's not going to change his mind. He's already said no. But this rescission motion isn't going to get up. To the applicants, I offer my apologies and every bit of support that I can offer between now and when the Land Environment Court takes this council to the cleaners. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. If there are no further, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour of motion to rescind resolution 24267, DA 2020-0005, refuse the application due to the following reasons: site unsuitability, extreme weather events, contamination risk, community concerns about pollution of water, odour and contamination. Those in favour?
Councillor Ingram and Councillor Mackay.
Those against?
Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Rolls and Councillor Dodd.
The motion is lost. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on now. We have 2 late reports to consider. Thank you. The late reports, if people want to leave now, feel free. Well, can we just wait? Yes. And we'll wait for the councillors to get back in. Thanks, Tony. I would love to hear this. Are we ready to go? Councillor Flannery and Councillor Ingram. Okay, Councillor Flannery is back.
Oh, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
I move the BANGO Wind Farm Community Enhancement Fund.
Sorry, Councillor.
Hold on, we've got to do something before that.
Move to accept the report.
We have 2 late reports that I have received and I'm happy to accept. And we have to move that that we will accept it. So do I have a mover? Okay, thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald and Councillor Foreman, a seconder. All those in favour?
We're voting for
Just to accept the report.
Just to accept the reports as late.
All right. Okay. Where's the first and the second? The first late report we have is EOM 6.2 2408 Bango Wind Farm Community Enhancement Fund.
I move the report.
Thank you.
I'll second it with an amendment.
Okay. Amendment.
I would like to amend the grants as follows. I'd like to amend that.
Tony, sorry.
I'd like to amend that the ex-services club be awarded $6,500. And I'll have to get a calculator out to finalise this, but St John's Anglican Church be awarded $2,500. Off the Beaten Track be awarded $4,000. The Irish Bullfest receive $9,000. The Carina Courts units receive $4,500. The Boorowa Aged Care Facility receive $5,000. The Boorowa Hostel, no, that was leading that one already, sorry. Lions Club of Boorowa Inc., New Driver Reviver Food Van Storage Shed received $6,500. The Boorowa Ex-Services Bowling Club received $4,000. And if you'll bear with me for 2 seconds. And according to my calculations, that would provide Galong Boorowa Rail Trail with, I think it's, I'll have to get checked that it's correct, but $4,900.
So I'm just going to go back to the Rural Ag Services Club International Women's Game from 7,500 to 6,500.
Yes.
Okay. St John Anglican Church fellowship units 3,000 to 2,500.
Yes.
Young Anglican Centre off the track with 4,950 to 4,000.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. The Woolfest from 10,000 to 9,000.
Yes.
Carina Court from 5,000 to 4,500.
Yes.
And then Lions Club New Driver Revival from 7,500 to 6,500.
Yep.
Rural Ag Services Bowling Club Replacement Scoreboard from 4,990 to 4,000.
Yes.
Rural Dale Rail Trinity balance 4,900. I think I might have missed one. Did I miss one?
No, that's correct. I just need I left it unchanged.
Boorowa Aged Care Facility, I think you said
Yes, yes, I did
5,000.
5,000. So it was 500. Yes, 5,000 there. Correct.
5,500, 5,000.
Yes, correct.
And then you said 4,900, but you don't think it's 4,400. You'll be back to the balance. Yes. What I may do is just everything else going to have the whole problem again. The amount for everyone who's looking at Holland, I can check that, and I've got really nine the people who look at the table in front of me. You've got the table there, the balances and forming out the funding. For like the family ID, Delta Initiative unsuccessful, for services from international UK 2025, 6,500. Point program successful, for which year 2024, 2,000. Team community engagement enhancement unsuccessful. The Senate upgrade unsuccessful. Football netball fund 5,381. Still well-being project for the Central School 1,020. The fellowship meals state John Dean Church 2,500. The young man was set off with the track 4,000. For the Irish War Fest 5,000. Historical Society 100. Legal property bank for more 4,080. St. Joseph Primary School football netball carnival the stage 2,965. For all rugby pubs, rugby festival for stage 5,518. The art in unleashable Australian power 2,000. Care Urban Farmer Centre, during the 12,100. Rural Age Care Facility, long-body facilities 5,000. The Rural Hospital Multi-Purpose Hygiene Care 5,000. The new driver reviver 6,500. The Rural Adult Riding Bus Camp 3,000. The Rural Workshop unsuccessful. Warming Body successful. The replacement scoreboard for the rural services bowling up 4,000. The painting school mill unsuccessful. The rural GALONG rail car environment assessed 6,440. Rural Christmas carols unsuccessful. Rural spending unsuccessful. 76,094.
Councillor Fitzgerald, do you accept those amendments, or do we need to go to an amendment?
I think we need to go to amendment because that'd be against what the BANGO Community Enhancement Fund Committee has recommended.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. So we have a seconder for Councillor Flannery's amendments.
You do.
Okay, so the amendment before you, councillors, is to adopt that schedule as I detailed out, the new revised schedule, for that to become the motion to be adopted.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll speak to the motion. So, with reference to the following agenda item, where we're looking at the GALONG VPA Steering Committee recommendations, and you'll notice there the GALONG VPA have awarded $10,000 towards the engineering study for bridges. So we've got a report that's due to come back to council that I asked for in the August meeting. I think
in October.
Sorry?
In the October meeting.
It's coming back in October. It's going to assess the rail trail and what position council does or doesn't hold, or what. I guess the report is to determine what information we need and the veracity of that information to apply for grants with respect to council taking on the lease. One of the key documents that's missing is the engineering study into the bridges. We have a dying community at GALONG that have put up significant funds to support various studies and feasibility studies into the rail trail. There's a small but dedicated group at Boorowa who haven't been so fortunate in getting funds, but it'll be of little benefit for council to bring the report back in October unless we can, well, there's two choices. Council put up the money in the engineering study, or we utilise some funds through VPA or Community Enhancement Fund, as is the BANGO wind farm. Now, as a councillor, I can't sit here and award $10,000 or consider $10,000 for a missing piece when I think, and I look through that list and all of them are no doubt worthy. There are some that I look and think, I wonder why they missed out, and I don't know, because we haven't seen the reports that have come up. But it still leaves the Burra-Galang rail trail short by $3,500 on their 20,000 that they will need. But I think it's a good start, and it will help us make an informed decision, not that that seems to matter anymore, on whether we support the rail trail or not. So I would encourage you to support this. I don't think I have, for want of a better way of doing it, docked anyone to the extent that's going to affect their project. There will be further funds forthcoming. The most anyone's lost is $1,000, and Galong Burra Rail Trail will have to go back to the community or to council. But I do believe, that those two communities would benefit enormously from the rail trail, but we need to know the facts, and getting facts in front of us normally provides good outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Would anybody else like to make a comment? Councillor Ingram, put your hand on the buzzer.
I'll talk then. I can grimace. Yeah, I'd like to commend Councillor Flannery on the work he's done to adjust those numbers to without doing any significant damage to any other applicant who was successful. The Burra one at the top, Mr. General Manager, is a local health advisory committee. Just for your info. That's okay. I thought you were struggling with it. The Burra Galong Rail Trail, as councillors in this room probably aware, I'm not a great supporter of the concept at all. But as just been put by my fellow councillor, till we have some information about what it might cost and what needs to be done, me thinking that I don't think I'm in favour of this, that doesn't cut it. We need to have some solid information in front of us that we can make, I hear someone say, a well-informed, responsible decision. So for that, I'm happy to second the amendment and speak towards it, especially given the fact that, as been pointed out, no other fund will suffer any significant loss of funding over it. It's been a well thought out and distributed amount of money. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Dodd, and then Councillor Bond.
Not sure if I'm a little reluctant to change something that the committee from Burra have decided. Are you able to shed any more light on why that was unsuccessful, or is that not possible to know that?
Through you, Madam Mayor. General Manager, would you like me to answer that, or the committee member, Councillor Rep. Councillor Piper?
The committee member spoke to it, so but if you want to start,
I might be able to shed it through you, Madam Mayor. I might be able to shed a bit of light, because there seems to be this circular economy going on with some people, and circular economies are good if you like going round circles. But council hasn't resolved to support it, so the committee hasn't resolved to put any money forward because council hasn't resolved to support it. So once we get into a big snowball and hit the bottom of the hill, I suppose we'll have achieved nothing.
Well, we had a meeting yesterday afternoon, which lasted quite a while, with myself, the other public member, the general manager of the wind farm himself, and our council representative. And the reasons that we've come up with for the rail trail, and just let me iterate for both Councillor Ingram and Flannery, I think it'd be a great idea personally for Burra and Galong when it's up and going. The reasons we decided not to go with them again was no guarantee of guarantee to the proceed. Very long-term project, still requires council approval. We still have to make a decision on what we're going to do with the land that this is going to go over. There are a few biosecurity issues, not many. Approvals aren't in place yet for where the trail will go, as there is quite a bit of conjecture.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, I'm either missing something or perhaps Councillor Piper can enlighten me. As this is money for an engineering study and not money to approve or in any other way vote council funds to the project, is there something I don't understand about an engineering study that provides further information for everyone involved, that especially given your comments that council hasn't support, or council can't support it till it finalises studies? Is there something I don't understand about that?
Engineering or environmental?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe it's an environmental study. And
okay, I correct myself. Sorry,
Councillor
a study.
Piper, as the councillor representative on the committee, is explaining the reasons the committee voted against.
Yes, as requested. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Piper.
And my question to Councillor Piper was, if this would provide one of the baseline studies required to determine whether council should or shouldn't support it, how can you support a project that you're not willing to support the study into providing you with that information?
As one of the 4 people there at the meeting that had a vote on it, the reason given was that there is already, and as Mr. Councillor Flannery knows, the trail has just got another $10,000 off another form of grant. Question?
From the GALONG.
Which is half the money they need.
And as a committee, that's what we came up with and decided not to go ahead with it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Piper, for your answer to the question. I think next I had Councillor Foreman.
Look, I am a supporter of the rail trail. Everybody knows that, but I think I'm in this instance. I think that we should support. We don't have the paperwork in front of us to know why the committee came up with those reasonings, and I also. I mean, I look down at where we're taking money, and it may only be a small amount, but I look at the fellowship meals. I mean, I don't know how many they're feeding out of 3,000 with the cost of living. I don't imagine it will be many. I look at the off the beaten track, and I know how they work extraordinarily hard, those women, and I know they're trying to weave that through the whole of Hilltops. The Woolfest benefits thousands of people. I mean, I just feel that I'm going to err on the side of listening to what the committee has recommended in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you. So I take it that was against the. Okay, Councillor Ingram.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a point of clarification. I think for me, my understanding is this is one of those committees that bring a recommendation back to council. Council make the resolution. Is that correct? So, again, I'll speak and commend the work that Councillor Flannery has done to grant money that, on the public record again, as saying I don't support it. But if we're going to make decisions about it, and they need the environmental assessment done, how are we going to make a judgment call if that assessment's not done because they can't afford to have it done? I would have thought one went with the other. Otherwise, Councillor Flannery used circular economy. You just can't keep going around in circles. Council haven't said yes, so we're not getting them any money. We can't get council because we can't get the environmental study done because we haven't got the money. I just think it would have solved and helped the future council, whoever that might be, to have an informed paper to make a decision on. But it sounds like that's not going to happen. And in regards to some of those things losing a few dollars, they're all very worthy causes that applied for International Women's Day. Maybe we could have took $1,500 off that and the ladies wanted to drink so much, I don't know. But maybe we could have done something there. He didn't mention that. But when it comes back to the GALONG rail trail, and we haven't got any evidence, environmental evidence in front of us, I shouldn't say us, the newly formed council, it'll be very hard for them to make an assessment of it. And when they say to the Rail Trail Committee, how come you didn't do this environmental study? We couldn't get any money allocated. That's about all. It's just pretty simple, I thought.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank
Ingram.
you, Madam.
Councillor Foreman,
Just one question.
A question?
In the environment, in the environmental, maybe to the director of in the environment, in the report that's coming back on the rail trail, will the environmental study be in that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, what I've been charged to do is to look at the documentation that's been provided, and I'll make comment upon that. Any further reports, well, that obviously can feed into that, but that's information that I don't have because the report doesn't exist.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the feasibility plan have been done, and that's what we'll be assessing. And I believe the environmental assessment is a further document that the committee have realised that they need in order to progress towards funding, seeking funding. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Everybody has the right to speak once on it. If not, I'll put it to the floor. This is
I'll have
the
my right of
amendment.
reply. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
3 years later, we seem to
Yes.
keep forgetting that.
Yes, I do. It's terrible, isn't it? Okay, right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, obviously this is going to be lost, so it is what it is. All I can say is I thought it's a very sensible approach without impacting anyone. I'll have to use my words carefully, I guess. Common sense doesn't seem to matter much anymore, nor do environmental assessments. So maybe we can somehow get money without an environmental assessment. But yes, I wasn't part of the assessment committee. No, we haven't seen the reports. Perhaps in future we need to have all these reports come back to council so we can adequately assess whether they've been adequately allocated so that everyone gets a fair share. I'm not too sure what health initiatives the Boyer LHAC might have missed out on. Anyway, look, I'm probably wasting my time anyway. I think I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you. All right, no more comments, questions. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of the amendment?
Councillor Ingram, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Mackay.
Okay, those against?
Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Piper, Councillor Dodd.
Okay, thank you.
The amendment is lost.
It's lost, so we go back to the original report, which we have in front of you. And it was originally moved by Councillor Fitzgerald and Councillor Flannery. Councillor Fitzgerald, do you want to speak to it?
I just commend the work of the BANGO Community Enhancement Fund Committee, and I'm more than happy, since it's not council funds, to support their recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ingram, you're looking worried there.
I am, because of the comment just made. Because it's not council funds, I'm happy to endorse it. So if it was council's funds, you wouldn't endorse it? That's what you just said.
I'll clarify that. If it was council funds, I would approach it in a different manner.
Okay.
Whether I'd endorse it or not would depend on the council funds and what it was for. What I'm saying is that this is funds from the BANGO wing,
I'm aware
which
of
the
that.
committee
I'm aware of that.
are doing it, and I'm more than happy for them to apportion the money as they see fit and support them in their work. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay.
That's not what you said, but
Thank
anyway,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there are no...
You said because it's not council funds, you'll endorse it.
Madam Mayor, I'll
All
speak
right.
against the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Look, I think this is incredibly short-sighted. I must say what I think. I think people who look, it's actually consistent voting, so that's clear. Because we just had a motion voted out, which I'm not allowed to be part of, but I happened to listen to it. And environmental, Madam Mayor, I'll keep talking. Thanks. No, I'll keep talking. Environmental matters.
Keep your
Environmental matters. Look, could you? Be
No,
quiet?
Councillor Flannery, I am speaking and I have...
And I was speaking, and I'm going to speak to this motion.
And I asked you, Councillor Flannery, just keep your comments and that to what is in front of us.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you.
Which is environmental matters clearly don't matter anymore because we've decided that we don't need an environmental assessment. We're just going to keep kicking the can down the road. It's very clear that no one cares about the environment here. So facts are out the door, Madam Mayor, including anything involving you.
Point of
This
order.
is my last point of order.
I
I
cannot,
agree.
honestly, it's disgraceful.
I-
It's disgraceful.
I
We're going to call
apologise,
up-
Madam
Mr. General Manager.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Flanny has apologised. This is our last meeting and I will accept graciously that apology. But can I remind all councillors that there is I'm still speaking, thank you. All right. There is a councillor code of meeting practice, a councillor code of conduct, which we have all agreed to. So thank you.
Through
All
you,
right.
Madam Mayor, with your
Thank
indulgence,
you.
Madam Mayor, just one thing I'd like to clarify for councillors in the room.
Councillor Ingram.
When you call a point of order, you will be standing and you'll refer to the point of order in the code of meeting practice that you're referring to. It's just for general information.
Okay, thank you, councillor Ingram. All right. Let's put it, if there are no more comments.
I'd like to speak against it, Madam Mayor.
All right.
Thank
you, councillor Ingram.
I'll try and articulate it a little bit differently from Councillor Flannery. He's obviously emotionally tied to this project because he just made a statement that completely contradicts what happened. He said there's obviously no feelings for the environment. We just knocked back a $14 million project because of the environment. So I'm sorry, Councillor Flannery, I'll have to pick you up there. Again, the adjustment of the designated funds to these other organisations were hardly touched. I think the big one was $1,500 from the new driver reviver food van store. Might have been $1,500. I don't think any of those projects would have been affected. I think they'd be very, very happy that they were successful, as opposed to a number of other ones on there that would seem to be just as important that were unsuccessful. We know there's not enough money to go around to everyone. It's not an endless bucket. Just because it's not council's money doesn't mean I'll treat it any differently. The environmental assessment for the rail trail, as I said, that I oppose, would be very handy to either support my feelings or convince me to turn around and have a look at it in a different manner. So thank you for your indulgence, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Ingram. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, my right of reply, if that's appropriate.
Are there any more queries, questions? If not, councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I commend the motion to you to support the decisions of the committee who've seen the documentation and those amounts. And although I don't understand completely, I'm certainly looking forward to it. But at some stage, there will be information about the BONOAK rail trail, which will come to the council, whether I'm on the council or not. I assume that the council at that time will make appropriate decisions. I support the motion and the amounts as presented to you in this report. Please vote for the motion.
Okay, thank you, councillor Fitzgerald. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour?
Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Piper, Councillor Dodd.
Those against?
Councillor Ingram, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Mackay. Passed.
Okay, thank you. All right, we go now to our last late report, or the second.
So moved.
Thank you.
Happy to second.
Councillor Flannery, and thank you, councillor Ingram. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, and thank Councillor Ingram for assisting me. Look, I support these very sensible recommendations adopted by the GALONG VPA. Hopefully they can get some supporting funds to conduct the environmental impact assessments required for the rail trail. They're a community, and I go to as many of their Progress Association meetings and other allied meetings as I can reasonably get to. they've really got two projects on the books. One is to get the little limestone park upgraded adjacent to the hall, or next block down. And there's a claim on that. So after, I think, 9 years of consultants' reports and considerable expenditure of funds, which has generally come out of the VPA. I think it actually may have all come out of VPA money. And I would, at a hazard a guess, that's been $60,000 to $80,000 spent towards doing up plans for the GALONG limestone park. They've been told as of about 2 months ago that can now no longer proceed because there's a land claim, not by the local Aboriginal land community, but the state community. So that's now off the books and not likely to return anytime soon, which is entirely their right. That it is as it is, little community that's looked after the park and mowed the lawns for all of my lifetime, has looked to other initiatives to try and get what was once a thriving community going. And I'll state some of the facts. When I was 10, there were 2 general stores in Galong. There was a rural supply store, there was a bakery, and there was a bank. There was an active railway station and a school operating. Now there's a part-time store, and I missed the local pub, which is a hive of community activity. The post office no longer operates, no pubs operating, as you can imagine, no school. And what there is a committed little community that meet bi-monthly, and every other month they have social gatherings and do the best to keep the community going. They've been disrupted by truck movements through the town with the expansion of the Galong mine, and part of that recompense is the allocation of funding for projects. One of the ambitions, and I appreciate the concern of Councillor Ingram, is to try and get the Boorowa to Galong rail trail going, which will bring tourists to the town and hopefully get a store going. So another thing I missed, we had a 32-bed retirement home in the town, which I was chair of for 7 years. So quite a thriving little community. And now it really has nothing more than a committed group. And I think they're probably up to $30,000 of funds they've put towards studies for the rail trail. Council's probably committed on a budget of 60-odd million, $20,000. So they're looking for some support. The reasons known to other committees, they haven't been able to support them, but I hope that this contribution by them will be adopted as part of these 3 points or 4 points, will be adopted by council. A report will come back to council in October, which will say that there's no environmental study, so we can't proceed any further. And then that'll have to happen down the track. And anyway, at a reasonable guess, I would say it'll be a year before we can make any sort of informed decision on moving forward with this. A couple of the community members will probably be dead by then, knowing their age and health, and they'll join the queue of people who have been disappointed by council actions and the general community inaction. Council attended a year ago a meet and greet about village tips, where they were basically not told that the plan of council is to close their tip down. We were told we were going to have, we've got a waste management study, and that was reviewing service levels and costs.
Councillor, can you just keep to what is here, please?
Yes, I
and
will.
that's the recommendation. And that is the allocation of funds for those 2 items.
Okay.
And that's what we're speaking on. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I did digress. So if they can't get support for the rail trail environmental impact study, maybe they can use it to keep their tip open. But for the time being, I would support the general business and action list from the Galong community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, councillor Flannery. Does anybody else want to make comments, speak for or against? Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd make comment in regard to the item 7.2B, Borowa Galong Rail Trail Committee Environmental Impact Statement, enable establishment cost $10,000. From what I've been hearing and what I heard tonight, with this proposed project, it would appear that Galong community been doing all the heavy lifting. Every time it's came in front of me in regard to council, it's been the Borowa Galong Rail Trail Committee, but just an observation, given that the two committee reports we just received, that the Galong committee are much more anxious and encouraging towards this project happening than the Borowa committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor Ingram. If there are no more comments, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. It has carried. That brings to a close our meeting at 6:15 p.m. Thank you, councillors. And thank you, councillors, for all the work that you have put in this term. So, and I extend my best wishes to all who are standing for the election. Thank you.